Okay, so this audience is good for us because we talked about, we have some chief technology officers here, we have some companies that have a chief technology officer, and then we have some companies that have some guy. So who should be spearheading this search for new technology? How should it be done? How is it done successfully where you guys are at? I'll start with Vanessa.
Since I'm the only one, I spearhead it. But I also look for information from other people in the company that maybe are talking to our customers who hear some new products coming out, a new app that might be useful. I also hear from the president, the CEO. They sometimes come to me with information, and we look into it. And I also, the other part is my outsourced tech team. I rely a lot on them to feed me new information. Hey, XP is going out of, you need to get a new Windows system in place, or whatever it might be.
So, not to cut you up, you have an outside tech team outside of the company?
Yes, we do.
Explain how that works, just so anybody who would maybe want to have an outside tech team, how that works for you.
Well, it's a managed service provider. We have 8 to 5 hours for their tech support team. And basically, if you're interested in it, you need to do a lot of research. There's, I think, a tech committee that's coming out. And I think a white paper just was put out on that we all contributed to. But basically, they manage all of our IT. Anything that goes wrong, top to bottom on the IT infrastructure, they are the first ones to know about it. They implement solutions, and I just say yes or no.
Les, who spearheads technology where you are?
Well, it's really what we're trying to do. So maybe if it's the HR department or if it's accounting, obviously they know what their needs are, and generally they have ideas about what solutions are going to work for them. And so they call us in as consultants to make sure that the technical portions and making sure that the security and those functions are working. But I can't tell HR how to run their business. On the other hand, if it's an infrastructure process, well then if we're talking about networks, if we're talking about servers, we're talking about business continuity from an IT perspective, we spearhead that. If it goes across boundaries, if it's something that we're talking about from a collaboration tool, for instance, obviously we'll be a large part of that, but we also include the operations teams to make sure that we're able to include the processes at the lowest level and make sure that they work within the collaborative environment.
David, go ahead.
What Les said. So we're very similar because I certainly don't have the monopoly on good IT ideas. We've been talking about younger generation as an example. I am not a younger generation guy, and I recognize that in how I consume IT and how I can both at work and at home. And so being able to take ideas from really anybody in the company and understand what the value. Now, it's my department's role, and I work very closely with the senior leadership of the company to vet the IT ideas to see if there's business value in them. A good example, Google Glass. When Google Glass came out, we thought, well, here's something that may revolutionize how we manage our warehouse. Probably not a bad idea from a technology standpoint. Well, Google pulled it off the market earlier this week, or in the last week. So thank God I didn't put a bunch of money into my Google Glass platform. But looking at some sort of wearable technology for the warehouse does make sense. And so being able to take a good idea that came from wherever and then vet it through a more focused business and IT lens is really the model that we try to follow.
So Vanessa and Les, kind of explain to me sort of how the ideas kind of go up and down the chain of command to the chief executive officer, the president of the company, or whoever it might happen to be. How often is a technology group meeting? Do you have a technology committee? How focused is the C-suite where you're working in terms of paying attention to everything that you're doing technology? Is this a weekly event? Is this a monthly event? Is this a as something comes up event? If technology is important, how are you guys handling?
We're cursed with a lot of committees and groups, but I'm also blessed by being able to be on the leadership team. So on a bi-monthly basis, I sit down with all of the ownership and the executives of the company, and we talk about. I get 15 minutes to talk about things that are important. We also do a quarterly CIO meeting where we review things that are coming out of other groups. And then we, as I said before, we have the North Coast Technology Committee, which helps us vet ideas. But ideas, as David said, come from everywhere. And so the idea is at some point, it used to be later, and we had a lot of guerrilla projects, but we've been able to enforce some controls so that IT is included early rather than late in a process to do the vetting. But really the way it comes to me, and then we take a look at the costs and we take a look at the benefits. And this is for custom software as well as licensed software or outside services. We help them build a business case for why this makes sense.
Vanessa?
Usually if there's an IT project that I need to have done, I get all the information, all the background costs, et cetera, ROI, and I present it to the management team. Then the two owners will review it and yay or nay it. There's no regular committee that we have. It's just when I feel it's needed. We don't really have a budget for IT because we're such a small company. We're just an individual company under 50 million. So we tend to just do things as needed.
Okay. I'm going to need some water here, so you guys are going to have to talk for a few seconds. Time for the rubber hits the road, okay? These folks can go home and say, I went to a technology panel at the NAED conference, and this panel told me, this is the tool, this is the technology, this is the app that we've used in the last 365 days, that if we didn't have this, we're not sure how we would function on a regular basis. What is that technology advance that you've had that these people need to know about? David, I'll let you start. I'm getting water.
Okay. We've got a few things that we've pushed out in the last year that are pretty neat and pretty compelling. But one I wanted to talk about because I was pretty sure Les and Vanessa wouldn't have it on their list. We just recently changed our phone system. Now we went from a traditional, exchange system, exchange phone-based system to a VoIP system about 9 years ago. So all of our phones are digital, are all, IP-based phones. But we went to a relatively new technology for phones called SIP trunking, which, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the geek side, but essentially what that means is every one of the phone numbers for Summit Electric Supply actually lands in our Albuquerque headquarters. So if you're calling my Beaumont, Texas store, you're calling Albuquerque, you're calling Phoenix, the number actually originates in Albuquerque, and then it routes through a combination of ours and our data service providers' technology backbone to the location. Not real glitzy from a business standpoint. Frankly, the business is oblivious to that fact. But what it means from a business continuity and a flexibility in DR management from an IT standpoint is huge, because I can direct any phone to any location literally at the flick of a switch. So if my Beaumont, Texas store, if somebody cuts their last line, backhoe cuts the line into the building, it's literally a couple of mouse clicks, and now that phone's ringing in my Houston store. And if the data line is still up to Beaumont, I can still route the phones to Beaumont through my data line. And so I get that continuity of service, and it's done so, frankly, at a lower price point. Les mentioned this. It's at a lower price point than what our prior VoIP phone system was through MPLS. So it's from a business standpoint, it's been great from a continuity, it's been great from a service providing, and it's been great from a cost savings.
Les?
I'd say analytics is probably the one thing that we've spent most time in the last year that's made the biggest bang for our buck. We've been looking at identifying by roles what's important, what are the key performance indicators for an outside salesperson, an inside salesperson, purchasing, management, accounting. And one of the things that we came up with in this process it was just a phrase, but basically telling our outside salespeople, this is your business. And so something that never shown up on a report to an outside salesperson on a regular basis in the past was, what is your accounts receivable with your customers? What are their average days out, and what's the amount that's there? In addition to sales information, and what are your rising lines, your declining lines, your rising customers, your declining customers. Basically, on a daily basis, we get, as of yesterday, statuses on a month to date, quarterly, year to date, comparing over last year for trend analysis, by role, the key performance indicators that they need to plan their days.
Vanessa?
Something else not so glitzy, we implemented a disaster recovery plan. I don't know if all of you know what that is, but basically ensuring that your entire system is backed up off-site so that if anything were to happen, such as an earthquake here in California or anything else, you can implement your system and put it up and running on any PC wherever you're at. No one in the company really sees that, but it was important. It's probably the one thing that I think was the best that we did technology-wise in the last year.
So, again, wrap that up. David, the measurable success of having that is just continuity, just being able to stay in business no matter what.
Yeah, really two things that we look at specific to that system is number of unplanned outages, and counting that and looking at whether you talk in terms of a percentage of available time or number of events, and then number of recovery from those events. You're going to have, there's going to be bad weather. We're on the Gulf Coast, you can't avoid that. You're going to have construction outages, what have you. How quickly can you respond to that and get yourself back online? That phone connection to our customers is the lifeline of our business. And so that's very critical for us to have that back up and running as quickly as possible.
Les, you measure your success of what you've done through revenue.
Revenue and utilization. Obviously, if we see that people are out there looking at that information, it shows they're consuming it, which is what we want them to do, to have this in front of them so they can make good decisions. And also by their feedback. We find that we have a very active user base that tells us what's wrong and how we can improve things. And so I think because of that, I think that we see that as success.
And Vanessa, you measure the success of what you've done in the last year just based on being prepared for anything that could possibly happen.
We're prepared. We actually did have a system outage a couple of years ago on a Christmas Eve. Fortunately, they got it back up in a couple of days, but since we had gone through it, we said we don't ever want to go through that again. So that's why we implemented it, and we have unfortunately been able to measure the loss due to that outage, but it should not happen again now.
It's interesting to wrap that up then. You have, again, you have staying in business, not letting your customers know that they can't communicate with you, making sure that is what technology is doing for you, making sure that you're continuing to increase your revenue and making sure that you're prepared. I mean, what else should technology do for you? It's really impressive. So I'm glad that we went through that. Let's talk about apps real quick. What apps do you guys own? How do they work for you? None?
We actually don't have any apps.
Les?
We have an online web store app, iOS and Android. It's version 1.1, so there's a lot of things that we're looking at doing, but it does allow people to go out and take a look at their pricing, log in, see their pricing, see on-hand availability, make orders, see images, look at spec sheets, and create product groups so the reorder can be done very simply, and it's integrated with all the information that's on the desktop as well. It's a start. We probably have another half dozen that are in the box waiting to be addressed. And this year we'll probably bring 2 of those out.
And so the app that you have, are you happy with its performance? Are you happy with the way it's being accepted by your customers? Because that's the bottom line. That's who you want to be connecting with.
Yeah, I think that we are happy with its performance. The use by customers is something I'm not sure how you're doing, but we're always looking for more customers to use our app. It separates us from some of our competitors, and we're able working. It also makes sure that we're able to justify the investment that we have in that. I think the one thing that we're looking for is the ability to have different roles within the application, and that's one of the things we're going to be looking at this year. And I think we'll have a much greater adoption after we do that.
David, what about apps?
Same sort of story. I mean, we've got a suite of products around e-commerce and the ability to do business with us online, and it's interesting if we looked at that purely as a revenue generating function. It's not paying for itself by any stretch, and we didn't expect it to, frankly. Certainly not right out of the box. But from a customer self-service standpoint, it's huge. We have literally, it may be thousands now, but it's certainly hundreds of customers that regularly go to our website, or they go to it on their phone to get proof of delivery, to get statements, to get invoices, to check pricing and availability. They still typically contact our inside sales force or outside sales force at that point to actually buy material. But from a productivity standpoint and from a customer service standpoint, it's huge, and I can't imagine us not having that in place. But frankly, it comes back to the first question: how, if you don't stay ahead of technology, how is your business going to look different in a couple of years? If you don't have a means for your customers to buy from an online channel from you, they're going to find somebody else who does. And so it doesn't have to be an amazing store. It doesn't have to be the next Amazon or the next eBay, but you've got to have some way for somebody to give you a PO online.
Do you think that's generational? Because the people that you're doing business with are younger and want to work online more than talk to people?
It is generational, but it's also part of that work-life balance. It gives you, if you are able to contact a company online, then you can contact them 24/7. Now, obviously, we have an online support call, and people can call us in the middle of the night, but it's not the same experience. I know back when I was in sales, my most frustrating call-out was I got a call from a customer one Sunday, came up to the office. What he really wanted to do was just get pricing on fixtures because he had to work that day. And so I explained to him that I didn't have to work that day, but I sat up there and helped him for 3 hours anyway. But beyond e-commerce, again, tools to help customers and frankly to help our business. We've been rolling it out the end of last year, first of this year, a full suite of mobile delivery tools. This goes out in our trucks now, and this is what customers sign, and this is where we get information from our customers when we're out making deliveries. We still bring them a piece of paper if they want it, but that's not our primary contact point on the deliveries. Mm-hmm. And then moving that back into the warehouse, and how do we manage our warehouses? Because what we're looking there is not to put technology for technology's sake. It's not about just looking cool. It's about being able to drive value into the business. How can I make my warehouse people more productive? How can I make my delivery people more productive? By having the technology out in our trucks, I'm able to invoice the customer the minute he signs for that material. I actually save a day in billing as a result of that.